All right, in this lesson, we are going to talk about money and finance and how it works in kind of the working world. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so there's different kind of pay structures. I believe I mentioned this at some point before, but basically you can either work on salary or with wages. So if you're on salary, you get paid one amount for the entire year. Usually you get paid every 2 weeks or sometimes it's twice a month. But yeah, you generally, you're given tasks to do, and you basically have to work until it's done. Like sometimes it might take you a shorter amount of time, or sometimes it might take you longer amount of time. Sometimes you have to work on the weekends because it's just not done yet. I just have to finish that. Or sometimes you have to work at night because again, it's just not done yet. If your employer asks you, like, you have to work on, on this weekend or holiday or something, you are officially supposed to get overtime. But in general, the way these jobs works is that, you just do the job until it's done. So that's how it works if you are on salary. Now, the other one is on wages. And so with wages, you are paid per hour. So the more hours that you work, the more you will get paid. And then if you're working over 40 hours, that will be considered as overtime. Sorry, 40 hours in a week, that would be considered as overtime. And typically you will be paid a little bit extra if you're working overtime. Sometimes it's like 1.5x. So if your wage is $10 an hour, then overtime you would get 15 an hour. Or sometimes it's 2x even. In which case, if your regular pay is 10 an hour, then on overtime you would get 20 an hour. Sometimes if you're working kind of the shifts at nighttime, weekend, or holidays or whatever, you might get extra pay for that too, for having to work on those kind of times. Currently, the minimum wage in British Columbia is $15.65 per hour. All right, so let's move on and talk about pay structures, other types of pay structures, that is. Some people work on commission, and so if you work on commission, that you are paid for however many things you sell. So, for example, like one example is usually, for things you sell, this is about people who are working in sales. So, for example, cars. So, for example, every car that you sell, maybe the salesperson is getting $1,000 or something like that. Typically it's for like more expensive things. So I don't know, big stereo equipment or something. Of course, when we're talking about real estate, we talked about those people get commission as well. Yeah, so commission is another way of getting paid. Contract is another way where you're paid per job or per task. So you're not paid, you're paid to do this job, and you do it as many hours as it takes. It could be a lot, could be a little, but you're paid to do that job. Or sometimes it's like kind of what they call piecework. For example, if you are a tailor or something, and okay, you have to make like 50 vests, and so each vest that you produce, you get a certain amount of money, something like that. With tips, okay, we already talked about the restaurant industry where they get paid in tips, and those people also typically, in BC at least, get minimum wage, I believe. Benefits. So besides the pay, you also get benefits. And so benefits are things like dental. If you have no benefits, you go to the dentist for a checkup and it's $150. But if you do have benefits through your work, then your work benefits will pay for part of that money. So you pay the $150, but maybe you get 100 back, or maybe you get all 150 back. Depends how good your benefits are. Another thing is like glasses or vision. Those cost money, but typically if you have a job with benefits, you get a certain amount of money per year, or maybe every 2 years for that. Services like physiotherapy, massage, things like that, you will get a certain allowance, typically with your benefits to do those things. Drugs, so there are certain drugs that are paid for by the province, and so they are free, or a certain portion of the drug cost is paid. But then certain drugs, like maybe fancier drugs, or I don't know, different, more experimental, whatever is not approved, then those may be covered by your benefits as well. So yeah, drugs is kind of a complicated one because there's the province will pay part, your benefits might pay part, and you might have to pay part as well. It just depends on the drugs. Sick days, that's part of benefits. So minimum in the province is, I believe, 5 sick days. There used to be no sick days, but one of the things with COVID was that the province brought in these new rules that you must, as an employer, you must give sick days now. And so those are paid sick days. So you call in sick, you don't work, but you still are getting paid. Vacation days, so typically, so paid vacation typically is going to be 2 weeks for kind of a standard job, but a lot of jobs have longer, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it is. And yeah, those are paid vacations. You are not working, you are off somewhere else or just taking the day off, but you are still getting paid. Parental leave. So these are leaves that you can get when you are, have a new baby or whatever. Typically, they've extended it to like 18 months or something. Now, you don't get paid your full salary for that time. You get paid a percentage from the government, which is equivalent to what you would get for EI or employment insurance. And sometimes your work will give you additional money in addition to like the government money. Just depends on your work. If you are not getting benefits, so some jobs don't have benefits. And so those jobs, typically like part-time jobs will rarely have benefits, I think. So in that case, you often will get a percent in lieu. And so they will say, oh, because we're not giving you any benefits, we'll give you extra money instead. So that might be, a typical 10%, 12%, 13%, something like that. So for every, $100 you make, they will pay you an extra $12 for the 12% in lieu of benefits. So typically, I think it's common for a company to spend somewhere in the area of like your salary. So say your salary or say the money you make per year is $100,000 a year. I think typically a company to provide the benefits will have to spend an additional $30,000 or $50,000, another 30 to 50% on top of your regular salary to pay for those benefits. So to the company, the benefits is actually quite a big cost, right? You're hiring, say, 3 people, but you actually have to pay for like enough money to pay for 4.5 people. Just because it costs a lot. So what happens is the companies will purchase like these kind of plans from like health insurance companies to get this stuff. And, so like typical ones are like Blue Cross or I can't think of the other ones. But so all of the benefits, you are dealing with some other company, but the company that you work for has paid that company to provide those benefits. If you don't have a job that provides benefits, typically you would like pay money to that health insurance company on your own to get those benefits. So that can be quite costly for people who are, own their own business or are like working kind of freelance people. They have to pay for that themselves. It is fairly expensive. Okay, so that's all about benefits. Now let's talk about expenses. So sometimes you do have to spend money to do your job, or not money, but maybe resources or something. And so typically like mileage, if you are driving your own car quite a lot for your job, the company may pay you something for the use of your car and the gas and stuff. So that's typically called mileage, and it could be, I don't know, like 10 cents a kilometer or something like that. I don't know exactly. But yeah, so if you drive 100 kilometers for work that day, they give you $10 or whatever it is. There could also be travel or per diem amount. So if you have to travel a lot for work, you're going all over the place, different cities and stuff. Typically, they will pay for like your hotel and they will pay for your meals while you're out, right? Because you can't live at home. You have to eat out all the time because you can't cook or whatever. So they will pay you and maybe say $50 a day for your meals and stuff. And so you will pay for those things, and then you will get like that money reimbursed by your company, and that's called the per diem. It just means per day. Sometimes you spend money and the company doesn't pay for it. You just like spend it on your own. You need it to do your job, but the company's not paying for it. And so in that case, often you can claim that back as a tax credit on your taxes. You don't get the money back, but you don't have to pay taxes on that portion of your money. And we'll talk more about that in the tax lesson. The final slide here is about taxes. And so if you have a regular full-time job, typically your employer, the place where you work, will withhold your salary and pay to the government on your behalf for your taxes. So say you are making $100,000 a year, and you have to pay, say, 30% of that to the government for your taxes. So your company will only pay you 70,000, and it will send that 30,000 to the government for your taxes. So they do that for you so that you don't have to worry so much about like having to save money for that. Each paycheck, you'll have some amount that is sent to the government automatically. When they do that, they're just estimating how much of taxes that you will owe. They don't know for sure because like you may have like other jobs, or you may have a lot of tax deductions. So it's just an estimate based on your salary, how much they think you will owe to the government. And then and then when tax time comes at the end of the year, you will have to do your taxes, and at that time you'll say, okay, yeah, I had this much income. You'll like figure out the exact numbers for all that, and then sometimes you will find that the government has has taken too much of your money, or your employer has sent too much of your money to the government, in which case the government will then send you some back. That is called your tax return or your tax refund. Or sometimes you will find that your company didn't pay enough, and so then you'll have to pay more money at the end of the year to the government. And so you have to make that adjustment every year. Some workplaces will not withhold tax for you. And so if that is the case, then you will have to save money on your own and then send a big chunk to the government. So say it's 30% or whatever, then you have to send $30,000 to the government. It can be quite a lot, actually. If you have multiple jobs, that makes it a little bit more complicated as well, because that job doesn't know that you have another job, so they're sending a certain amount to the government, and so yeah, you have to straighten all that out at the end of the year when you do your taxes. You do have to pay tax on all your income, no matter where it came from, whether it's salary, wage, commission, tips, rental income, whether it's income that you got from selling stocks. Any money that you get is income, and you do have to pay tax on all of that every year. So you just add up all the money that you got from all the different sources, and that's the tax you pay. And like I said, we will have a whole lesson just on taxes, so we'll get more into the weeds of that pretty soon. Actually, that lesson is going to come. Okay, so that is all about money and the workplace. That's all for that lesson. See you in the next one.